Hi, friends. I hope you had a great weekend. It was good to talk to some of you today. If I didn't get a chance to talk to you today, I'll try really hard to talk to you tomorrow. Are you ready for chapter 6? Chapter 6 of Stuart Little is called A Fair Breeze. One morning, when the wind was from the west, Stuart put on his sailor suit and his sailor hat. He took his spyglass down from the shelf and he set out for a walk, full of the joy of life and the fear of dogs. With a rolling gait, he sauntered along towards Fifth Avenue, keeping a sharp lookout. What in the world do you think it meant that he sauntered along? Whenever he spied a dog through his glass, Stuart would hurry to the nearest doorman, climb up his trouser leg, and hide in the tails of his uniform. And once, when no doorman was handy, he had to crawl up into a yesterday's paper and roll himself up in the second section until the danger was past. Look at these pictures. There's a doorman that I guess he scurried up his pants one time when that dog was coming close by. And then here's a fire hydrant. I guess it's just, if you look really closely, you can see Stuart there with his spyglass. I guess he was just standing on the fire hydrant using his spyglass to look for dogs. Wonder why he doesn't like dogs. At the corner of Fifth Avenue, there were several people waiting for the uptown bus, and Stuart joined them. Nobody even noticed him because he wasn't tall enough to be noticed. I'm not tall enough to be noticed, thought Stuart. Yet I am tall enough to want to go to 72nd Street. Okay, and here's the picture of getting on the bus. And look how he had to get on the bus. Can you see him? He grabbed onto that man's pants and he climbed up on there. I guess he was probably too small to get up on the step all by himself. When the bus came into view, all the men waved their canes and briefcases at the driver, and Stuart waved his spyglass. Then, knowing that the step of the bus would be too high for him, we were right, Stuart seized hold of the cuff of a gentleman's pants and was swung aboard without any trouble or inconvenience whatsoever. Stuart never paid any fare on buses because he wasn't big enough to carry an ordinary dime. The only time he ever even attempted to carry a dime, he had rolled the coin along like a hoop while he raced along beside it, but it had gotten away from him on a hill and had been snatched up by an old woman with no teeth. After that experience, Stuart contented himself with the tiny coins that his father made for him out of tinfoil. They were handsome little things, although they were really rather hard to see without putting on your spectacles. When the conductor came around to collect the fares, Stuart fished in his purse and he pulled out a coin that was no bigger than the eye of a grasshopper. "What's that you're offering me?" asked the conductor. "It's one of my dimes," said Stuart. "Is it now?" said the conductor. "Well, I'd have a fine time explaining that to the bus company. Why, no, you're no bigger than a dime yourself." "Yes, I am," replied Stuart angrily. "I'm more than twice as big as a dime. A dime only comes up to here on me." And Stuart pointed to his hip. "Furthermore," he said, "I didn't come onto this bus to be insulted." "Oh, I beg your pardon," said the conductor. "You'll have to forgive me, for I had no idea in all the world that there was such a small sailor." "Live and learn," muttered Stuart tartly, putting his change back into his pocket. When the bus stopped at the 72nd Street, Stuart jumped out and hurried across to the sailboat pond in Central Park. Over the pond, the west wind blew, and into the teeth of the west wind sailed the sloops and schooners, their rails well down and their wet docks gleaming. The owners, boys and grown men, raced around the cement shores, hoping to arrive at the other side in time to keep the boats from bumping. Some of the toy boats were not as small as you might think, for when you got close to them, you found that their mainmasts was taller than a man's head, and they were beautifully made, with everything shipshape and ready for sea. To Stuart, they seemed enormous, and he hoped he would be able to get aboard of one of them and sail away to the far corners of the pond. He was an adventurous little fellow, and he loved the feel of the breeze in his face and the cry of the gulls overhead and the heave of the great swell under him. As he sat cross-legged on the wall that surrounds the pond, gazing out at the ships through his spyglass, Stuart noticed one boat that seemed to him to be even finer and prouder than any other. Her name was Wasp. She was a big black schooner. She was flying the American flag. She had a clipper bow, and on her foredeck was mounted a 3-inch cannon. She's the ship for me, thought Stuart. And the next time she sailed in, he ran over to where she was being turned around. Okay, look at the picture. And this is actually a place in Central Park. There's a pond that's there, and they actually do sail boats on this pond. We went to New York a couple of years ago, and Andrew rented one of the little boats, and he sailed. The one that he used was like a little remote control boat. It wasn't like that one, but it was similar. It was a lot of fun. "Excuse me, sir," said Stuart to the man who was turning her, "but are you the owner of the schooner Wasp?" "I am," replied the man, surprised to be addressed by a mouse in a sailor suit. "Well, I'm looking for a berth in a good ship," continued Stuart, "and I thought perhaps you might sign me on. I'm strong and I'm quick." "Are you sober?" asked the owner of the Wasp. "I do my work," said Stuart crisply. The man looked sharply at him. He couldn't help but admiring the trim appearance and the bold manner of this diminutive seafaring creature. "Well," he said at length, pointing to the prow of the Wasp out toward the center of the pond, "I'll tell you what I'll do with you. You see that big racing sloop out there?" "I do," said Stuart. "That is the Lillian B. Womrath," said the man, "and I don't like her with all my heart." "Then so do I," cried Stuart loyally. "I don't like her because she's always bumping into my boat," continued the man, "and because her owner is a very lazy boy who doesn't understand sailing and who hardly knows a squall from a squid." Okay, and there's Stuart dressed in his sailor's outfit, and there he is talking to the man about riding on his boat, and you can see his boat back behind him. It really is kind of a big one, isn't it? Wow. "Or a jib from a jibe," cried Stuart. "Or a luff from a leech," bellowed the man. "Or a deck from a dock," screamed Stuart. "Or a mast from a mist," yelled the man. "But hold on now, no more of this. I'll tell you what we'll do. The Lillian B. Womrath has always been able to beat the Wasp in sailing, but I believe if my schooner were properly handled, it would be a different story. No one knows how I suffer, standing here on the shore, helpless, watching the Wasp plunder along, when all she needs is a steady hand on her helm. So, my young friend, I let you sail the Wasp across the pond and back, and if you can beat that detestable sloop, I'll give you a regular job." "Aye, aye, sir," said Stuart, swinging himself aboard the schooner and taking his place at the wheel. "Ready about." "One moment," said the man. "Do you mind telling me how you propose to beat the other boat?" "Well, I intend to crack on more sail," said Stuart. "Not in my boat, thank you," replied the man quickly. "I don't want you capsizing in a squall." "Well, then," said Stuart, "I'll catch the sloop broad on, and I'll rake her with fire from my forward gun." "Foul means," said the man. "I want this to be a boat race, not a naval engagement." "Well, then," said Stuart cheerfully, "I'll sail the Wasp straight and true, and let the Lillian B. Womrath go yawning all over the pond." "Bravo!" cried the man, "and good luck with you." And so saying, he let the Wasp prow go. A puff of air bellied out the schooner's headsails, and she paid off and filled away on the port tack, heeling gracefully to a breeze, while Stuart twirled her wheel and braced himself against a deck cleat. "By the by," yelled the man, "you haven't told me your name." "Name is Stuart Little," cried Stuart at the top of his lungs. "I'm the second son of Frederick C. Little of this city." "Bon voyage, Stuart," hollered his friend. "Take care of yourself and bring the Wasp home safe." "That I will," shouted Stuart, and he was so proud and happy that he let go of the wheel for a second and did a little dance on the sloping deck, and he never noticed how narrowly he escaped hitting a tramp steamer that was drifting in his path with her engines disabled and her decks awash. Okay, here's the last picture. And there's Stuart dancing his jig, and you can see the boat back behind him that was sinking, that he almost hit because he wasn't paying attention. All right, so this was a long chapter, but chapter 7 tomorrow is the sailboat race. So I'm wondering what's going to happen, if he's going to race in this race. It'll be exciting to see. See you tomorrow. Have a good evening.